Can you even imagine a political party putting together a pizza and Xbox night to draw in more kids to their ideology? You think about it. Your kid comes home, tells you that Tommy's parents are Republicans, and they invited him to kids' night at the Rubio campaign headquarters. There's a bus that's going to pick them up, and all the boys and girls will sing songs about lower corporate tax rates along the way. They got to sit through a quick, boring lecture about trickle-down economics, but after that, it's video games and ping pong all night long, and everybody takes home a Ronald Reagan coloring book. Is there anybody who wouldn't think that was creepy as fuck? I mean, I know there's been plenty of shit like that in totalitarian governments, and I'm sure they have something just like that for the kiddies in North Korea, except there's no food and they all just play stick. But when we see that, we still all agree it's creepy as fuck. That's why we don't have libertarian teen dances or a democratic socialist summer camp. Now, of course, I need to give you some credit because I'm sure you also recognize that it's creepy when religious people do this. But why isn't that obvious to everyone? Any other ideological position would be all but nationally reviled if they started targeting children that were too young to understand the shit they were saying. And yet most of our fellow Americans see nothing at all wrong with Kiwanis Club or the Boy Scouts or the extra homophobic counter Boy Scouts the Mormons made up. For some reason, there is virtually nothing that religion can do in its effort to recruit children that will earn them the kind of public condemnation they deserve. I used to work at the Universal Studios in Orlando, and once a year they'd have this massive late-night evangelical rock concert. Rock the Universe, they called it, so it doesn't even sound remotely Jesus-y. A bunch of churches and their auxiliaries would pool together piles of money to rent out the amusement park for the night. They'd bring in a bunch of shitty Christian bands, and then they'd bust kids in from 30 states to fill it up. And when you're 13, how awesome is that? Right, you go to an amusement park after dark, you see a rock concert, and you don't even have to worry about your parents being there to embarrass you. I mean, sure, the music's going to suck, and there's going to be a bunch of God shit, but there is also going to be roller coasters and boys or girls or whatever it is you're into. I mean, look, I talked to these kids. I attended these things. By and large, these kids aren't zealots or the children of zealots. Most of them couldn't have cared less about the religious part of this. It was just a big party to them, and nodding along with the Jesus shit was a small price to pay to get there. And of course, the organizers know this. That's the whole point. It wouldn't be worth all this money if they were only drawing in kids that were already hopelessly infected with the Jesus. The idea is you bring in kids that are wavering in their faith or don't care about religion or starting to doubt God. You show them a good time. Maybe they meet a cute girl or a cute boy. They stay up way later than usual. And in the middle of the high-dollar, low-talent rock show that caps the night off, they lay on the Jesus thick. They put you in as euphoric a mood as they're legally allowed to, and then just then, when you're at your most accepting, they give you the hard sell, or the altar call, whatever they call it. And if you're like most kids, you get caught up in the chanting and the singing, you get caught up in the mob intoxication, you're desperate to belong to something, and you do feel the Holy Spirit. You do feel the power of Christ, or at least you feel a thing, and everybody's calling that thing the Holy Spirit. So if it all goes as planned, the kid gets excited as fuck and then associates that religion with one of the best nights of their short life. I mean, look, a couple of months ago, I saw a sign for Christian wrestling at a local church. Like shoestring WWE shit, but with a sermon in the middle and an altar call at the end. And when you live in rural Podunk, how often are you going to get a chance to take your kid to a live wrestling event, right? If they like wrestling, they're going to see the sign, they're not going to put together the significance of the big giant cross on it, and they're going to beg you to take them. And of course, you would say no, or at least you'd get them properly prepared for all the evangelism they were about to see. But what about a nominally Christian, non-church going parent, right? They're not going to have your savvy. So they sucker a kid in with wrestling and sell him Jesus instead, and for some reason that is perfectly okay. I mean, look, I remember this shit from my childhood. My mom was pretty enlightened about this kind of shit and outright forbade me from going to any of these prepubescent indoctrination seminars. And in retrospect, I thank her for that. But I remember plenty of nights as a kid angry to the point of tears because I couldn't go to Kiwanis with David or movie night with Justin. Hell, I had to miss out on a party that featured multiple Pac-Man arcade games set on free play in 1983. Took me years to get over that shit. Now, obviously, the ethical depravity of this shit becomes really obvious as soon as you plug in anything other than religion, right? I mean, even if it's the political party you agree with or the economic system you support. But if you think about it, it's actually way worse than that. Because to be truly analogous, we'd have to imagine that once the kids got to Republican pizza night, they were told that they would burn in hell for eternity if they ever disagreed with Grover Norquist. So even if every type of ideology went after children with pizza-infused propaganda rallies, Christians would still be immoral in comparison. But of course, The evolution of religion has left them with a perfect excuse/marketing ploy to get around what otherwise would seem so blatantly unscrupulous. They'll say, well, we have to target the children because their souls lie in the balance. So the fact that we're indoctrinating them long before they have the mental capacity to separate fact from fiction and question authority, that's just a necessary byproduct. That's not the reason we're doing it. After all, they'll ask, what if you're wrong and that child was condemned to hell for eternity because the gospel of Christ was withheld from them? And honestly, if you want to point out how insane that statement is, all you have to do is agree with it. All you got to do is turn to him and say, yeah, well, I guess if I find out that there's a magical deity that eternally tortures children for not going to the right wrestling events, I'll sure regret that I never worshipped him.